My first sweat fitting, I just bought my first house, had everything I had to do it, build a winner. Then classic, tiny leak under the sink, still didn't spray. Yeah. So I knew my brother had done it before, called him up and asked him. The first one I did was brass fitting copper, which is really hard to do. And I killed that valve, like cooked the whole thing. Yeah. But after that, they've always worked, not the wood.
Where's your gavel?
Yeah, the project, getting the water out is the biggest. He doesn't fly either. So now they have so many things now, shark bites and all that stuff. Very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the applicant, staff board members and members of the public. You are attending the December 5th, 2023 meeting of the City of Bangor's Planning Board. My name is Reese Perkins. I'm chairman of the board. Other board members here this evening, from my right is Mike Basnet down on the end, and then vice chair Ted Brush and Josh Saucier, our assistant, not assistant, but associate, thank you, is next. And then Ken Hume right beside me, Jonathan Boucher on my immediate left, and Trisha Hayes just beyond him. Josh is filling in for Don Mahar, so he will be voting in his absence. Board members are volunteers from the Bangor community. City staff members this evening, Dave Sebchek, city solicitor, is up here on my left. Planning officer Anya Collette is down here on my left. And on my far right up back is new assistant city solicitor Grace Innes. We thank them all for their help with this meeting. The planning board has multiple roles. First, we review amendments to the land development code, which typically includes either changes or to zoning districts or changes to text within the code. We have one of these applications this evening. Our review of these amendments includes adherence to the most recently amended comprehensive plan and is in the form of a recommendation to the city council as to whether the item ought to pass or ought not to pass. The city council makes the final decision on all zoning and land development code changes. Secondly, we serve as the regulatory authority for the land development permits, commonly known as site plan review. We have two of these this evening. One is a continuance from the last meeting. Site plans are reviewed to ensure compliance with city code as to parking, driveways, environmental impacts, stormwater management, etc., as applicable. We ensure the plan meets the dimensional requirements for the project's zoning district. We review larger site plans that trigger site location development for the main DEP as well under their requirements. Some uses are conditional uses that have specific conditions and requirements we use to review the project. State statute also outlines the requirements for subdivision review, and the city has additional standards as to roadway and utility specifications. Subdivision is primarily defined as a development with 3 or more lots or dwelling units. The board ultimately endorses a plan that will go to the Registry of Deeds if the plan is approved. The Land Development Code can be found on the city's website. I would like to remind everyone to please silence their cell phones this evening. When the applicant or members of the audience are asked to speak, they should come to the podium right up here in the front center and introduce themselves, note where they are from, and address the board and the staff. When speaking, please make sure to speak up and into the microphone and verify that the microphone's green light is lit up. If you are on Zoom, please use the raised hand function to let us know you would like to speak, and we will then bring you into the meeting. We broadcast these meetings to streaming services. All comments and discussions should remain respectful and considerate of all others. Any attempts to disrupt this meeting by disrespecting the views and opinions of others may result in persons being asked to be removed from the meeting. As a last resort, we will end this meeting if it cannot continue in an orderly or considerate manner. We will call the applicants in the order they appear on the agenda. When it is time to present your project, we'll ask the applicant or their representative to come forward to present the application. Once you've made your presentation, the applicant should stay at the podium while we take comments from the staff and questions from board members. At that time, the applicant may be seated, and we will then open up the floor to public comments. If there are any comments from the public, we ask that person speaking to indicate if they are for or against the project. Once public comments are completed, we will close that item to public comments. We ask that you keep your comments brief and to the point. It is also helpful for board members if you can refer to the city codes or standards indicating the reason for your support or lack of support for the project. Board members must rely on codes and standards for project approval. The board will then deliberate on the proposal using the standards found in the Land Development Code and/or state statute as applicable and act on the proposal. The board may approve or deny a project or may otherwise choose to work with the applicant if there are compliance issues that could be addressed with modifications to the plan. The board may continue the application to a future meeting in order for the applicant to modify the plan or for any other cause. If you disagree with the decision of the board regarding the project, you have the right to appeal the board the decision to the Superior Court of Maine. Once your project has been reviewed, feel free to leave the meeting, but if you prefer, you're welcome to stay for other project reviews. All projects, once approved by the board, must apply for construction permits with the code office. All approved projects need to be started within 6 months of our decision and completed within 2 years, although extensions for good cause may be granted through the code office. We thank all applicants for taking the time to present their project for our review. The process is important for the city's development and direction of our future. Before I get to the first item on the agenda, John Terrio has stepped in. Hi, John, our city engineer, and so he's up behind me now. So with that, the first item on the agenda is Land Development Code Amendment. As I mentioned earlier, the city council has final authority on these items, and the board should consider any motion as a recommendation ought to pass. A no vote on an ought to pass item is considered ought not to pass. The city council will typically provide final review of these items at the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. Tonight, it is a zone change to amend the land development code by changing a parcel of land located at 424 State Street, map lot 059004, from urban residence 1 district URD 1 to government and institutional service district. Said area of land contains approximately 1.03 acres total. The applicant and owner is James Butler Jr. Do I have an applicant here to make a presentation? Sir.
Thank you. I think that's James Butler. I am the applicant. I want to start by thanking staff and economic development planning department for all their help. They've been absolutely wonderful. I live at 424 State Street. As everyone is aware, the cost of maintaining upkeep, utilities, taxes are very expensive. The city has recently completed a comprehensive study and a plan as the city is expanding. My location has been recognized as an area of future growth.
Thank you, man.
I'm asking for the zone change that I can explore some options to generate income so I may improve the property. I appreciate the opportunity, and should you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. I'll also introduce Ann Krieg, Development Director. She's just stepped up here and is going to sit up behind me. So she's here this evening. Staff comments on this one?
No staff comments.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant from board members? Let me get to public comments. Are there any public comments on this project? Questions from the public? Seeing none, hang on just a minute if you would, Mr. Butler. Yeah, okay. I don't see any other questions. You're fine to say answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm gonna close public hearing since we have no questions, comments on that item. Board members, do we have any comments before we go to a motion? Seeing none, a motion,
Yes.
Member
Chair,
Hume?
I'd like to make a motion that we propose to the city council that they ought to pass for a zone change for 424 State Street, map lot 059-004, urban residence 1, district URD to government and institutional service district. And just as proposed.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Member Brush, thank you. Any further comments before we go to a vote? Roll call vote, Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair, I vote no. My comment there was simply that the city consultant to the historical commission was kind of against the project, and I also was a little bit concerned because I see that this zone is a zone for public and nonprofit only, and I wasn't sure I saw anything in there that guaranteed that. So I vote no. Anyway, nonetheless, your project passes, and so this will go to the city council as a next step. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to land development permits. And the first item on that list of items is land development permit for a major site development located at 1246 Ohio Street. Map lot R15014. It's for the removal of 2,330 square feet of an existing garage and 1,680 square feet of an existing office and construction of a 6,000 square foot combination office garage with delineated parking in the rural residential and agricultural district. That's RRA. The applicant / owner is John T. Sear and Sons. Is the applicant here to make a presentation this evening?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff, Scott Braley with Plymouth Engineering, representing John T. Sear and Sons. Your summary is perfect. Staff has reviewed the project. A couple of things that I think are important for the members of the board to recognize is that we're taking 2 old buildings, getting rid of them, putting up a nice new building, paving what has historically been a gravel yard, establishing C buffers and E buffers as the city currently requires, which this project was done before zoning was even in place. And so none of those were required at the time. So we're basically bringing the site into current standards and with the construction of a single new building to house both the office and the maintenance area, as well as a wash bay. And it's pretty simple. I heard an applicant a couple of weeks ago call it tidying up a site. And I thought that was a good way to put it. That's basically what we're doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Borelli. The applicant, there's a signature on the application, but I couldn't make out the name, so I'm kind of curious who represents.
Mike, I believe the application was signed by Mike Sear.
The permit checklist was signed by Development Director Krieg on 10/20/23. That's in your packets. There are some minor outstanding questions and revisions as far as I could tell. Planning staff comments on those?
I don't think there are any outstanding concerns. They've addressed all of our concerns in the checklist.
Okay,
So-
everything's been resolved.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Thank you. So I would like to go to a motion from the board on completeness of the application and if it is ready for review. I did fail to mention that the application was signed and dated as of 10/13 and that it verifies proper fees were paid by the applicant. So I'd look at going to a motion to accept completeness of the application and ready for review as a major site development. Unless the board has questions for Mr. Braley.
Chair, I had a quick question.
Certainly. Member Bazinet.
I noticed in the plans, no floor drains?
No floor drains. No floor drains in the maintenance section. There'll be evaporating drains, basically dead drains in the wash bay. There is a floor drain that goes out to a holding tank because DEP city requirements, we can't put it in the septic system. So it goes to a holding tank, which will be contracted to be pumped out.
So it doesn't even require a grease separator?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
correct. Thank you.
And that's for the wash bay.
That's for the wash bay.
Thank you. So I would still look for a motion on completeness application. Thank you, Member Saucier. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote on this one. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. So we are accepting the application. And the next step would be we kind of started that with Member Bazinet's question, but any questions for the board from the board for the applicant other than those that we've discussed already? I mean, I kind of had one here. It seems with all that's being done, has anyone really looked at the septic system?
There's no change in the number of employees.
Right,
And
but
so
age of the system is,
I contacted the site evaluator that actually did it, because there was some question about where it lies with regard to the property line. And there is a written agreement in place with the landowner adjacent to the site, and everything's working fine. We're going to actually take out the existing septic tank, put in a new pump system to get it to the existing field. And there's been no issues with the existing field.
okay, good. Thank you on that. Stormwater, I guess this is a question more for the staff. Maybe two questions wrapped into one. The project is non-compliant, because as you mentioned, it was built prior to us creating codes. So that was the reasoning behind the stormwater not requiring a stormwater development plan or developing a stormwater plan, I guess is a better way to put it. Is that correct?
So currently they're really just converting the gravel area to pavement, and gravel is considered impervious area. And John can probably answer this better than I can, but I don't think they would be increasing impervious at all on the site.
Actually, I was going to jump in. We are actually reducing the overall impervious area because the gravel yards now go almost to the property line, and we're bringing them back to meet the current parking setbacks. So we're actually decreasing the impervious area.
Yeah.
And we certainly rather see it, the lot paved than just gravel.
Then just gravel the whole way. Right.
Right. And just a correction, it's technically non-conforming rather than non-compliant, but just a wording. issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
There is a difference. Yeah, thank you. So it's going to remain non-conforming.
Yes,
Yep.
it is technically a expansion of the non-conforming use on the property. because the existing non-conforming use is a smaller garage. They're going to a bigger garage. And then the parking is non-conforming with regard to setbacks. So there's that as well. And that the expansion of the use, the non-conforming use is what requires the planning board approval.
Yep.
So.
It seems in the non-conforming section of the code, there's sort of a wish that if possible, make a property conforming. Was that discussed? Is it not possible?
If they were, I mean, really the only way for this use to be conforming would be for them to change the zone, and any of the applicable zones wouldn't really fit with this area. So the non-conforming ordinance was their best option for.
And while not totally conforming, Mr. Chairman, we are certainly making it more conforming with the addition of all the buffers and the paving and setbacks.
Right.
And reduce driveway width.
I'm sorry?
And reduce
Oh,
driveway
that's
width.
right. And one of the
Yep.
curb cuts is being reduced in width because it's wider than city allows. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay. I believe our next step would be to open this up for public comments. Do we have any public comments or questions on this project? Seeing none, I will close public comments. We need to go down through this, folks. 165, 114 land development approval standards, A through J. And so I'm going to just get started on that. A is subdivisions. And so, I would take a motion that A is not applicable and is not a standard that needs to be met.
Move that the proposed construction of non-subdivision for item A.
Member Saucier, thank you. Do I have a second? Member Basnet. And roll call vote. Member Basnet.
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hune.
Yes.
And Member Saucier.
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So A is not applicable. Item B, on-site parking, loading and access. The applicant shall show that the proposed parking and loading layout, including the pertinent drives, turnarounds, maneuvering areas, and on-site travel lanes are arranged in a reasonable and safe configuration, including the provision for safe pedestrian travel to all on-site uses. Which would, of course, be documented in the, you can pass that down, in the construction plans. And yeah, there's a lot of these.
Some of them for.
Oh, this is for the other project, right?
Right.
Okay, I'll worry about this in a second.
I'll move that it conforms.
Thank you. So you'd move
That it conforms.
this project meets that standard B. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Saucier, thank you. And roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and myself, the chair votes yes. So it's unanimous. It meets item B, on-site parking, loading and access. Driveways. Item C, the applicant must show that all proposed access drives from the site to any public right of way are reasonably necessary and safe. And so forth. I'm not going to read the whole thing. All driveways must conform to requirements, of chapter 271, streets, etc. Any questions, comments on this item, or can we move to a motion that this project meets Member Brush is shaking his head. Concerns, you just try to find it.
Inadvertent.
Okay. Questions on this part? I'd go for a motion that the item meets the standards.
I'll move that it meets the standard.
Member Hume? Do I have a second?
Okay.
Member Brush, thank you. Member Boucher, I'm sorry, Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes as well. Item C has been accepted. Item D, stormwater management. We just spoke about this a little bit ago here. The applicant must show the stormwater runoff from the proposed development will not have an unreasonable adverse effect on abutting or downstream properties or protected resources such as wetlands, streams, etc. Any questions on this? I mean, I've asked some of those questions already. Any further questions on this item? Comments? Motion to approve stormwater management.
I move that based on the decreased area of imperviousness, this is not impacted by the stormwater and the net development will not impact the stormwater.
Thank you, Member Saucier. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hume, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Item E, outdoor display, storage and lighting. The applicant must show that all display and outdoor storage areas are situated and properly screened to avoid unreasonable adverse effects on adjacent properties. All outdoor lighting shall be designed, installed, and maintained to avoid unreasonable adverse effects from light pollution. In my perspective of things, this is actually an improvement. They've put in better lighting, which is more night control. Is that the right term?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. Nice sky, dark sky. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions on this item? The light specifications are in your packet. If none, I would go for a motion on the outdoor display and storage being outdoor display, storage and lighting item being acceptable.
Chair, I move that this application meets that criteria.
Member Hume, thank you.
Second.
And a second from Member Saucier, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Outdoor display and storage and lighting has been accepted. Landscape of unpaved areas and other treatment of the site. Landscaping shall include as minimum. And there's a list, as you know, they must show that it's properly screened, and that is on the documents. Installation of elements to physically separate paved and gravelled areas from open space. Treatment of open space, drainage, slopes, yards, etc. The additional planting of shrubs and trees beyond that specifically required elsewhere in this chapter. Planning board shall encourage preservation of existing tree growth. The use of native species is encouraged. Any questions on this item? Details on the trees are in the contract documents. Thought there, so I'm hesitating a bit just to make sure everyone's okay with this. Motion? Member Hume?
Yeah, I'll move that this meets this criteria.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Member Brush, that's okay. First one I saw. Member Brush seconded, thank you. So roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and Chairman votes yes as well. So we've accepted landscaping and I'm sorry, we've accepted outdoor display, storage, lighting, and then the landscaping item, which is item F. And then item G, building location. The applicant must show that the location of the building meets all required setbacks and is situated to avoid unreasonable adverse effects on adjacent properties or public rights of way. I think that one's pretty straightforward by the contract documents. The building is kind of smack dab in the middle of the lot and quite a ways back from the street. Questions on this item?
Seems like they've improved it.
Motion? Member Bazinet?
I'll make a motion that under item G, the building location, the applicant has satisfied the criteria.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Boucher?
Yes.
Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well, accepting G, building location. Item H, environmental impacts, where competent evidence demonstrates that there exists within 250 feet of the limits of the proposed development site and a historic site, significant wildlife habitat, or a rare or irreplaceable natural area, the applicant must show that the proposed development will not have any unreasonable adverse effect on the historic site, habitat, or natural area. Questions on this item? As far as I know, there were none of those. Yep. Right. Could you do me a favor and just repeat that up on the?
The wetlands were delineated on the site and the green light's on.
Yep.
Okay. The wetlands were delineated on the site and there's no impact to the wetlands. We're actually decreasing the impervious area and staying within the confines of what was previously disturbed.
Thank you, Mr. Braley. So any other questions, board members? If not, I'd go for a motion on environmental impacts. Member Brush?
Yes, I move that it meets the environmental impact requirements.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet? And roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And Chair Perkins votes yes as well. H, environmental impacts has been accepted. Item I, water resource and shoreland preservation. Whenever there's a pond, lake, or river, stream, and tidal waters within 250 feet, I think Mr. Braley just answered this question, but anyway, as far as I know, there are none of those. That's what you just said, right?
There are none.
Thank you. The applicant must show that the proposed development will not have unreasonable adverse effect on those resources. I don't imagine any questions on this item. Do I have a motion?
I move that we deem the standard non-applicable.
Not applicable. Yes, that's fine. Member Saucier, thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and Chair Perkins votes yes as well. Item J, and this is the last item for anyone that's getting weary. Item J, for site developments needing approval under provisions of 38,481 through, and this is Maine state regulations, 481 through 488 as amended, and which meet provisions of 489. City solicitor advised this is not applicable. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank
So
you.
the
So
motion
we'll
should be
cut to the chase on that. Can I have a motion that this is not applicable?
I move that this
Member Saucier
J is not applicable.
and Member Brush, second. Thank you. Roll call, Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. Okay, so having gone
Chair,
through.
could I have the floor for a
Yes,
second?
certainly. City solicitor.
I'm going to suggest that the board make one more vote on a non-conforming uses section of our code, 165-16. It's going to be A1, okay?
Yep.
That section says the use of any land or structure or any portion thereof which is made non-conforming as a result of the enactment of the code may be continued, but only in strict compliance with the following requirements. A1 is the one that's applicable. A says a non-conforming use of land or structure may continue to exist and may expand in size within the lot boundaries or building, provided the expanded use meets all other requirements of the district to the greatest extent possible. All such expansions of a non-conforming use are subject to the following. And one says for commercial non-conforming uses, review and approval by the planning board under Article 16, which is what you just did, to ensure the expansion of the non-conforming use does not increase any adverse impact on adjacent properties. So I would suggest that the motion be that that this application satisfies the criteria under section 165-16, capital A1.
Does not increase adverse impacts.
Yeah, because it does not, that you've done that approval and that it to ensure that the expansion of the non-conforming use does not increase any adverse impact on the adjacent property.
Okay, so board members, right? So what we have here is we're going to reference 165-16, capital A1, and in that section, the commercial non-conformance, we have considered this does not create any further adverse impacts, any increased adverse impacts.
Does not increase any
Adverse
adverse impact
impacts.
on adjacent properties.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Yeah.
Or any questions?
You want a motion?
Member Hume?
Yeah, I move that this property conforms with the statute on non-conformance.
Are we good?
In
other words, that the criteria is met.
Property, huh?
Is the motion intended to say that the criteria is met?
The criteria is met.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Boucher, thank you. And so roll call vote on that one as well. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes as well.
Chair, one more.
Yeah, we need a final vote on it. right?
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I was getting ready. Just want to make sure it wasn't someone else out there that was, yep, thank you. Yep. So with all that being said, the last thing to do would be a final vote on approval of this project, as we would normally do. Member Hume?
Yes, Chair, I recommend that this be approved as presented.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion. I move that we.
Thank you. Major site development. Map lot R50. I'm just going to read it. I just feel better. Located 1246 Ohio Street, map lot R15-014 for removal of the existing garage and office and construction of a new office and garage in the rural residential district. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. And a roll call vote on this one. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. And so I think we are complete with that item. Thank you. And so moving on now to land development permit, major site development, preliminary subdivision and conditional use of Lancaster Avenue and East Broadway. Did these get passed around?
Yeah, so I wanted to clarify for everybody and the board, these are pictures that did not come through in an email from an abutter that you did get all the emails from that just earlier today, but I will continue passing this out to the applicants and any other abutters, but this is regarding stormwater. So yeah, just want
Thank you, Planning Officer Colette. Excuse me. So this is a continuation of this consideration. This is a project at Lancaster Avenue and East Broadway, map 044, lots 043, 039, 040, 041, 058, 059 for the development of 60 attached residential units and construction of 1,950 feet of new road, along with utilities in the low-density residential district. The applicant and the owner is Team Properties LLC. Previous meetings on this project included those on November 14th and November 21st. The board recognizes additional testimony has been received since the last meeting in the form of emails, PowerPoint presentations. We just received some pictures, findings of fact, updated contract drawings, and other new material. We should have a motion, discussion, and vote on allowing the new information presented since the last meeting. If the vote is affirmative, then we would allow public testimony on the new information. So the next thing would be the vote on that, right? Correct?
Right, the vote on to accept the new
Accepting
materials received.
the new material. So can I have a motion that we accept the new material that has been received since the last meeting? Member Bazinet, thank you.
I'll move a motion to accept the materials that were furnished to us tonight to proceed ahead.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes as well. Okay, so the primary information that was received, I'm going to list, I'm not going to list the correspondence and so forth. But the 4 items that I believe have come in are a DEP permit by rule for utility crossing dated October 2022 by Moyes, and the drawing C1 was updated with wetland delineation, and drawing C7 has been updated with a profile of East Broadway extension. And we also received this evening these drawings, which basically show, I'm just going to read them because it's easier, I think, for everyone to understand, for those of you that may not have them in front of you. But this first drawing is a map showing no historic resources in the vicinity of this project. The next one is a map showing wildlife habitat natural areas in relation to the project site. And then I think there's a third one here. Can you describe that one, Anya, please?
Yep. So there's an email and that there's 2 maps showing significant wildlife habitat. The third map included is just clarification, and the zoomed in map showing in better detail the significant wildlife habitat in the vicinity.
Okay. Thank you. So we have continued a public hearing, and we had closed public comments at the last meeting. I want to now, yes.
I didn't know if you wanted to also mention that these photos came in. I'm talking about the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did, but I'm happy to redo it because
I'm just saying that you had just went through the list. You said because I know what you're about to go to next. I just want to make sure that there's comment allowed on the new materials.
on
Yeah.
these photos as well.
On the new materials that came in since the last application, since the last meeting.
Yeah, up until today. till now, all the new
And
material.
including today.
Yes,
yeah.
including today.
These photos that you printed were referenced in one of the emails. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Chair.
they,
It's okay. Go ahead.
They were referenced in one of the emails that we've included in our acceptance, correct?
yeah,
They
yes.
just didn't get forwarded.
It didn't, they
the-
didn't make it through in the forward,
Okay,
so.
I just wanted to clarify
yes.
that they were something that came in.
Yeah.
And we're just receiving them today, but they were in the correspondence that we've already reviewed.
Okay, I've been corrected. So we're going to open this up to all new information that was received since the last meeting for public comment. Do I have public comment on anything that we've received since the last meeting?
Chair, you might, I don't know if the applicant wants to talk about the new materials, but maybe the applicant should go first.
Sure, that's fair enough. Mr. Pease, would you like to?
Good evening, Attorney Tim Pease on behalf of the applicants. No comment right now. I'd like to reserve the opportunity to comment if there are any other public comments. Thank you.
Would this be an appropriate time to ask Mr. Pease about the permit by rule, or should we wait till after the public hearing?
I think it's fine to ask right now, so let's do it.
Okay, on the site development, one of the questions that came up was the permit by rule for the sewer line was a separate impact considered separately from the aggregate impact on the overall site. Does the impact by the permit by rule of the sewer, because that material is put back in place, is that essentially just a temporary impact and then that gets restored after the sewer's in the ground? Because I'm trying to figure out why that wouldn't be added into the overall impact, and that's.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, city staff. My name is Dave Moyse, Moyse Environmental here in Bangor. We did the soils and wetlands work on this project about a little over a year ago, including the permit by rule that member associate is referring to. Yeah, I think it's a very important point because this has been debated and they're saying, oh, there's a lot more wetlands permitted or whatever, but they're two separate items. So the main permit by rule is done under the pursuant to the Natural Resources Protection Act, State of Maine, administered by DEP. And the permit by rule process basically is set up so that you essentially, just like it says, you're permitted by the rule. So if you follow the rules, erosion control, things like that, you're permitted. You send a notification in, which is what we did. And for the utility crossings, they're used for all types of things, shoreline stabilization, work adjacent to a resource. Basically, it's for minor impacts. And then again, ones that possibly restored when you're talking about a utility line. The total impact that was permitted was 3,388, just a second here. Of I believe. I think it was 3,388, something like that, square feet. And the impact that is done for under a permit by rule does not count. It absolutely does not count towards the total impact, which is the threshold of 4,300 square feet that requires an application to DEP. So the 3,388 does not count towards that 4,300 total, whereby if you go over that for the entire project, then you have to need a permit from DEP. Only about 1,662 feet, I believe, was it one area on the site that was mapped previously. We actually looked at the site and that area was not a wetland. But so the only impact that is going to occur is, I think it's a small area here, and we didn't, like I said, we didn't need a permit. It was around 1,600 square feet, but basically we did not trigger that. Was that amount? What was it? 2,500. Okay. So it didn't trigger the 4,300. So we didn't need a permit from DEP. So just the permit by rule was required. Did that answer your question?
Well, not quite. I always have thought that, and this is because of some of my experience on a project I did over in Brewer, we tried to submit separate permit by rules for different lots. and they said we had to consider it all as one project and add them up. And my thought was that this was exempt from that because it was a utility crossing, and essentially the soils get replaced anyway, because it's section 9, rather than,
Yeah, it met the
rather than
requirements
like
for
a
utility
shoreline or
line
something.
crossing because it's considered the temporary impact. It's just like you
temporary
said,
impact,
basically
yeah.
the material's removed.
Yep.
The line goes in, the material's put back. Go back there in a couple of years and you won't even know the line. is
Okay,
there.
that's that's the
So, yeah.
clarification.
So
I was
that's why
wondering about.
again, that's not counted towards the permit requirement threshold of 4,300 square feet. Any other impact on the site would go towards that 4,300 square feet. But as Mr. Burley just alluded to, it's like 2,500 square feet, I believe was the remaining wetland area that's being impacted. So it's well below the 4,300.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Are you open to public comment? Because I'm right here. I have one.
I am opening up to public comment,
You
so
are?
if you want to, I would like to say right up front, I'm going to limit everyone to 3 minutes unless, I mean, you were answering board members' question, but if you want to take your 3 minutes right now, go for it.
Like a minute. This project certainly is not any exemption for the amount of comments that I'm certainly you're going to be hearing tonight. My only request is, as point of order, is that when you hear opinion versus actual statements such as the wetland was done wrong or the stormwater design done was wrong on whatever, I'd like to know what their person's credentials is, and I respectfully request as a point of order that the board ask them what their credentials. If they're going to comment about stormwater and say the stormwater was done improperly, then they better be a professional engineer. If they're going to comment and say the wetlands were done incorrect, then they better be a professional wetland scientist. You're certainly allowed to your own opinion, but you're not allowed to have your own facts. And there were emails that were sent, including to staff just recently this week. They stated, the wetlands were done inaccurate and they weren't complete and so on. And if you're going to make that kind of statement, then you need to be hopefully a wetland scientist, or you shouldn't be making it. So that's it. That's my request. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Brian Ames. I'm at 124 Lancaster Avenue. Basically, I've submitted both PowerPoint and letters to this board, and I wonder, have you all read them, and are there any questions that you might have regarding any of those submissions? If not, I'll point out the salient features of those. First of all, we do have a situation that is vastly different than the original permit because of the 500-foot perimeter and because of the major minor change to a major subdivision. So both of those give us a much different set of parameters to evaluate both the site plan, the subdivision, and more importantly, the conditional use agreement. The study that I've done includes housing types, housing styles, intensity of use, and they do not conform. The project does not conform to those items. And if you look at it closely, really you can't find much that does conform. When we realize that conforming means it shall be similar to, not more than, similar to is the criteria that we need to go by. There's nothing here on this project proposed that is similar to. So when you look at the project overall, I think that it does not meet the conditional use conditions, and it needs to be revised until it does. Any questions?
James, to talk about your point on density of use. I cannot locate in the vast sea of information that we've collected on this at my fingertips right now, but so forgive me if I can't cite the exact wording, but your comments say that it does not meet the wording for density. And I believe you had a measurement starting from the center.
Carry on. Carry on.
starting from the center of the development, you measured out, and that's how you achieved your end result numbers. And the developer has achieved their numbers saying that it meets the criteria for density. You're saying that it didn't meet the criteria for the density. So, Mr. Chair, who's right? If they're both saying that it doesn't, that their side meets the criteria for density of use, and they provide numbers to back that up. But they're in difference of opinion here. So how do we know as non-professionals who's correct? That's my question.
Yeah, I'm not really the guy to answer that question either. I think that's part of our deliberation is that I certainly think board members are going to have opinions. I think Mr. Ames has an opinion. And as you mentioned, there are reports that we have that are different from what Mr. Ames' view is. Mr. Gray has given us quite a lot of information on this in his PowerPoint presentation as well. And I think it's really up to the board at some point during these conversations over this evening and further if we need to come to a vote and a conclusion of where we stand on these things. And that is also why sometimes, we have 7 votes and 5 are one way and 2 are another. That's how it works.
Okay, I'm just, when there's a formulary involved and there's a standard of where measurements take place, how far they go out, what the criteria are for achieving the matrices that are in the end result. To me, it's math. It should be the same no matter who does the computation. But I guess it's not going to be, is that, and the fact that it is not going to be identical, is that appropriate?
Again, we went around this a little bit when we reviewed this project the first time. And one of the things that we concluded that we can do is we can demand further information if that's the proper thing to do. So I don't want to rule that out. If it is wise for us to take a step in the direction of asking either for a third review or for each computation of density to be further detailed to provide, something that gives us an exact number. Those are the things we can do as well to resolve this problem. And as I remember from our first review of this project, this is exactly the kind of conversation we have. And so if we feel that that's necessary, then that may be how we resolve this.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Ames? Member Saucier?
There's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? And it's how we frame each person's statistics. I'll weigh in on it. But one of the things I kept hearing in the presentations saying that the density was incorrect was the term 1.5 story. And to me, a 1.5 story doesn't really exist. If you go upstairs and you have living space up there, you're in a 2-story house. And the visual presentation, and I'm not going to present opinion, but what we've got is we've got 2 opinions being presented by a group that, as far as I know, are not licensed architects. So they're Brian's an engineer, I believe, right? Yeah.
Engineer.
Yeah. So they're not particularly qualified to make that density calculation any more than anyone on this board. So I think we have to keep that in mind as we go forward. It is a 1.5 story and a 2-story house much different? I guess that's something we can evaluate in our own minds, but we also should consider those visual cues too that we were presented.
May I respond to that?
Thank you. Would you like him to? That's up to you.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Let me back up to the first question regarding calculations. There were 2 sets of calculations that were proposed the first time around, one by the applicant and one by the city engineer. We do agree with the city engineer's findings, however, and we used his findings in our calculations for the density criteria. His square footage and ours agree. So the only thing we add to that is the number of stories to come up with the bulk calculation, which is a combination of both height and square footage. That's a volume. So rather than going out building by building, which is a very arduous task based on measurements of each building, we said, okay, let's just take a quick review of what we have for building types here, which are 1-story, 1.5, and 2-story buildings. And to your point, the definition of a 2-story building is accepted by most people, and that's a building where the top eave is equal to the ceiling of the second floor. That's the criteria for a 2-story building. I'm talking about the second floor. If you look around, you'll find that the majority of these buildings were originally 1-story and that they were expanded to a living space, either with dormers or dustpan additions, making them either a 1.5 or perhaps a 1 3/4 building. But if the eaves do not equal the ceiling height, they are less than a 2-story. So in the calculations, which we admit are somewhat cursory, we came up with a definition that shows that the average is less than 2 stories. That's the primary point that we're trying to make here, that they're not equal. The proposed development does not conform to the mathematical average of the existing neighborhood. That's the conclusion.
Chair, point of order.
Member Bazinet?
He's answering a question that was asked. of
Yeah,
him.
I'm okay with that.
That thing should not be timing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to stop once you get going.
I also think it's distracting for the person trying to make their point.
I thought it was a microwave.
Any further questions of Mr. Ames? Thank you, Mr. Ames. Does the city engineer have any comment on that topic?
No, not specifically. I mean, I did that, a year ago or whatever, based on what the
That's okay.
planning board agreed to do.
Yep.
We kind of outlined what I was supposed to look at for the parameters of what was to be included in the work. I basically just took aerial imagery and traced out the building footprint, maybe the porch, but pretty much that was all I looked at for build out. I didn't do sheds or anything like that. And then I just took the area of the lot and, lot by lot came up with the density, took the overall amount and come up with the average density. And then I did I took their area and their footprint for all the buildings they had. And what I found with the way that I did it, as basically directed by the planning board to do, was that and I don't remember how much, it was similar densities for what the neighborhood had versus what was being proposed. Actually, what was being proposed was slightly less, I think, according to my calculations, but I really haven't revisited them since last time I looked at it. So, but I believe that's the gist of it.
Would you say that Member Saucier's assertion that really the crux of the problem here may just be the difference between a 1.5 and a 2-story as far as bulk calculation?
Yeah, I don't make that statement without.
Okay, that's fine. I just figured I'd ask while we were having fun. Okay, any other public comments? Jeff Gray.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff. My name is Jeff Gray. I live at 100 Lancaster and I am opposed to the Maine Woods proposal. Am I on a timer?
Yes.
Okay, so just to continue on with what Brian was speaking about, we passed out a visual aid last week for you all to look at, so that you could see with your own eyes how much less dense the surrounding neighborhood was compared to the Maine Woods. Does everyone understand that handout and what that displayed? Is there any questions about that at all? They're going to be about twice as dense as the surrounding neighborhood. Are there any questions about my PowerPoint? I know there was a lot of information. There's 30 slides. Everyone get a chance to see that? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the hazards up there. We had 2 car accidents during the storm. last night. And we're all done pulling people out of ditches. From now on, it's going to be blue lights and tow trucks. So you'll have your crash numbers by the end of the winter, I promise you. I just wanted to, how much time do I have left? A minute and a half or so. All right, I'm not going to be able to go through all this. I went through the checklist that Mr. Pease developed few folks to go by to check off. And there's a bunch of inaccurate inconsistencies there. I'm just going to go down through get as much in as I can. The abutter list is not current. Metal roofs are not typical in our neighborhood. The applicant has not shown that the land's capacity to hold water has not been reduced. The applicant has not shown that the proposal will not cause unreasonable or unsafe conditions on public roads. The proposal will have an undue adverse effect on the aesthetics of the neighborhood. 60 of the same thing is the exact opposite of a variety of 70 different things. In other words, 60 exact townhouses of the same type are exactly opposite of 70 different houses of various shapes and sizes. So that does not conform. We just talked about density. The proposal is in conflict with local ordinances and the comprehensive plan. The upstream subterranean water flow is not considered. Am I done? Well, I got halfway through. Yeah, all right. No. No.
Any other? Yes.
You have any comments? Yeah, hold them until the end. I got 3 minutes. I'm a veteran. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. My name is Dwight McIntosh. I live at 55 East Broadway. Now, we bought that land for 2 reasons. First of all, for privacy, and number 2, so we could be close to medical facilities, which I have to admit I have to be close to. No, I don't like the development because it's interrupting the way I perceived I'd spend the rest of my life. But moreover, I don't like it because it's all because everybody thinks it's going to be such a good thing. It's a good thing for everybody. Well, the only people it's going to be good for is the financial people. There's $50 million of state and federal money going into the state right now for expanding housing opportunities for the main people, building housing units that is not out of the kindness of their hearts. It's tax credits, it's low interest loans, it's creating homes for the recovery, drug addict, homeless people, etc. I read this it's on the Maine State webpage, by the way. I'm sick of hearing these people are doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. Oh, we're trying to help people. That's a bunch of crap and everybody knows it. It's only going to benefit a bunch of certain people. It's not going to benefit all the people of all of Maine. It's not going to benefit the working people of the state of Maine. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. It's going to benefit the veterans. It benefited one veteran who was a lucky person that won a home. And that was just a marketing ploy. And it shows already we don't want it. And it's proving itself out. The bottom line is we already know what's going to happen. These are going to become rental units. It's subsidized. Again, rental units are subsidized for the low income. I used to be there. I grew up in the low income. I worked my way out of it. A lot of people don't. Now, how many of you people right here in this room, right here on this board,
have anything to do right now with real estate or have something to do with real estate in the past 5 years? Working for, we're part of? Anybody? I already know the answer, so if anybody has, please answer up. Okay. All right. Now, I want to go back a little bit. Would anybody be willing to trade properties with me? So that they could have a farm pond in their backyard? All the dirt they want to play in and all the mosquitoes they can eat? No hands?
That's enough, ma'am. That's enough. That's enough.
Before I get started, I emailed these to the board. You guys familiar with these pictures? Tiny little baby potholes for next year because they square danced the sidewalk flat instead of using a. You see those? Okay. You all live in the neighborhood. You've seen it.
Could you give your name and so forth, please?
My name is Melissa Bryant of 104 Lancaster, and I cut a significant number of anecdotes out of this speech to try to get it down below 3 minutes. I was here for the first meetings when the people in my neighborhood pointed out the problems with parking, the problems with trash, the problems with snow removal, the problems with water pressure and traffic and getting kids to the school bus safely. Team Properties felt that these were the buyer's problems and not theirs. Member Shaw brought up the question of accessibility and requested that paved sidewalks be added to the plan. The proposed units do not have first floor bathrooms and are themselves not accessible, but I do commend the effort. When the BDN article about the stop work order came out a year later, Emily was there bragging about the sidewalk she hadn't finished putting in and complaining about NIMBYs. So I went onto my Facebook page and I told some stories about what it's like to have Team Properties in the neighborhood, how the sidewalk curbs flooded a public yard for 6 months, how they damaged a private driveway and a public road and left it half blocked with cones for months. The plow just took care of the last of those this morning. How they parked trucks and equipment down the full length of Lancaster with no signage and no flaggers, and how I personally have nearly had 2 head-on collisions from people turning off Essex, not expecting traffic on the wrong side of the road because there is no signage and there is no flaggers. So I tell my little stories and I quickly get a response from PJ Breton on behalf of Team Properties saying I shouldn't blame them. They were just too busy to fix the damage they'd caused. I asked him whether he knew the curbs would cause flooding and he said that he did, but it wasn't his fault because it was his responsibility to build, not design. He then went on to say that they didn't have to fix the damage to the road or the driveway due to the stop work order. I contacted the city to verify and the next day they were out there paving the sidewalk. We saw how that went. Is that the standard that Team Properties contractors are proud to operate at? Is this the quality of work that our new neighbors can expect to see represented in their framing, their roofing, their plumbing, and their electrical? Are we hoping the work that they do behind drywall is held to a higher standard than the work they do out in full view of everyone? It doesn't matter. That's not the problem. I want to talk about the stop sign, because when they paved that sidewalk, they took down the stop sign at the intersection of Lancaster and Essex. I called the city when I saw it, and they said they were coming to put it back up. Now, the road between Broadway and Essex has 4 90-degree turns. They don't have stop signs, and traffic is expected to take these turns without stopping and continue on. Anyone unfamiliar with the area could easily have mistaken that intersection for a 5th such turn and pulled directly out into 40-mile-an-hour traffic. Cars coming from the south would never have seen them. And do you know whose fault that would have been? Not Team Properties, mine, because I saw that sign down, I knew it was unsafe, I knew it, and I kept driving anyway, hoping that someone else would take care of it. I later learned that that sign was down for 2 days. So if someone had gotten hurt, I would have carried that with me for the rest of my life. So here I am now, because Emily uses NIMBY as an insult. But after seeing the ongoing disregard for safety and good practices, I don't think it is. I hate conflict. I hate public speaking. I'm going to go in the hallway and throw up after this. I'm here because I feel it's my responsibility to say, no, you cannot act like this. Not in my backyard and not on my watch. On September 6th of 2022, Ned Irish stood before this board and pointed out the exact section 165-111 that later caused a judge to invalidate the permit, and he was ignored. I am standing here now and I am telling you that the way Team Properties operates is unsafe. I am telling you that they are more interested in avoiding blame than in avoiding problems. I am telling you that their actions have put lives in danger. The last time we were ignored, it cost us thousands of dollars in legal fees to force this city and this company to follow the law, and that was just for permitting.
Melissa.
We don't have the resources to force them to do safe groundwork or safe electrical. And I find myself in the position of being responsible for people who I don't know how to help because we cannot even put signs up anymore because we've gotten letters from their lawyers.
That's enough, Melissa. Thank you.
I'm asking somebody to take responsibility for this.
Chair,
That's yes.
can I make, I just want to make sure that the comments that are brought forth tonight only have to do with the new materials. Yeah, right?
By further public comments? Yes, Trevor?
Hey, I'm Sandy McIntosh on East Broadway. I want to ask each one of you on the board.
Sandy, hold on just a minute. I think it's better if you make comments, say what you want to say,
Okay, I'll say what I want.
please.
Would each
And
one of you
before,
like to have
hang on.
180 people
Hang on.
living in your backyard?
Sandy,
Hey.
hang on just a minute.
Can you answer me?
No,
No.
will you hold on just a minute and listen? Okay. It is not for you to get up here and ask us questions. It's for you to get up here and give us comment.
Okay.
And hang on. I'll let you have your 3 minutes. Thank you. We're trying to keep the conversation this evening towards new information that we've received since the last meeting. We've been through what a lot of you have all already
You
told us.
don't understand because none of you would come to my house and see the giant pile of dirt he put right at my back doorstep.
But you've already told us that, Sandy.
No, I didn't tell you that about the dirt.
I believe
I
you.
can go out there
I
and go
believe you did.
skiing off a mountain.
Okay, carry on with your 3 minutes
Would
anyway.
any
That's
of
it.
you like to come to my house? Would any of you like 180 people in your backyard? The noise is horrendous. They took all the trees down, all the bushes down. The interstate is so loud now that I can hear every car and truck going up and down the interstate because they've cleared all the land to the interstate. Then we got the mosquito hole. I can't even go out in the summertime. The mosquitoes are swarming us. That's the runoff that they made. What are you going to do about the runoff? Where's the runoff going? Where's it going to go?
Sandy, tell us what you want to say, but
The mosquitoes.
which
the
you told
noise,
us, you told us at the last meeting, the
Did you
mosquitoes.
listen?
Yes. Do you have something new to
Come
add?
to my house? Who's come up?
Okay.
Who comes up to look? Anybody?
Do you have something new to add this evening?
Yeah, help us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lori Cody Dunn and I live at 634 Essex Street. After listening to what you guys were talking about with the John T. Sear, unreasonable adverse effect is extremely important for my property anyways. Having these large structures overlooking my house is not going to be great. And you all were talking about the density. Maybe we should consider having an outside person separate from them, separate from us, come in and do the density study. And maybe that would resolve that problem. And I'm just concerned that that project is going to become Swan Village because I have not heard anything good about what happens down on Condescake Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public? Yes, ma'am, back there.
Hi, my name is Michelle Laird. I live at 647 North Front Street. I have a video I took the other night before the snowstorm. As I'm walking home, there's a sign on my corner as you go around Alden Street onto North Front. There is a sign. I have a video. It says it's only 15 miles per hour. Tonight, as I'm waiting for my ride to come get me, I am watching cars coming around the corner. If you'd like to see all these videos, I can show you. They're going more than 15 miles per hour. I don't know who did the traffic study. I thought someone mentioned it's like basically supposed to be 25 miles per hour. They're going more than 15. I mean, why have a sign going up Alden to come around the corner to go 15 when people are going more than 15 miles per hour? I mean, this guy is zooming down my road. There's a guy coming around my corner going way too fast. I mean, this is the first snowstorm. I mean, I'm surprised nobody's over my lawn yet, but it will happen. I'm pretty sure. I mean, And I mean, and next to my house, like Sandy says, there's no brushes to protect. I hear noises, the sirens of the ambulance, the police cars going by, trucks all hours of the night. I mean, I'm right beside the interstate. I hear this noise. A fence or something needs to go up so we don't hear this. My neighbor has even said she's going to put a fence between my property and her property because she hears the noise. I mean, it's too much. I mean, my mom never wanted this. Rest her soul. I feel bad for her because she's afraid there's now brush there. There's like a path. It can be a walk path if you want to go up my road and lead up to East Broadway where Sandy and Skip live. I mean, you could use that as a pathway if you want. I mean, if you really want to walk it. I mean, it's awful muddy. I wouldn't walk it, but somebody else might want to. And I mean, I know my 3 minutes is probably almost up or a little bit, but can I read a message from my neighbor? Because she couldn't be here. She's at work until 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, and we're trying to stick with new information here since the last
The
meeting.
basement, right, water in the basement. She gets water in her basement
No,
because of the runoff.
we've had that information before.
Okay.
We've
I
heard
mean,
it.
this is my neighbor. She
I
never
know.
been here
I
before.
know. I know. We've had that information
Okay.
presented to us before.
Okay. Well, she wanted to be here and she wanted to explain about the water, so
Mm-hmm.
in her basement.
Further comments on the information since last meeting? Seeing none, I will close the public comments.
Chair, do you have to Zoom?
Excuse me?
You
Member
have to check
Bazinet?
Zoom? Do you have to check Zoom?
I did.
You
I
did.
didn't see any hands up over on Zoom.
I didn't hear that.
Yep, I didn't say it directly, but yes, thank you. Mm-mm. Oh, no. Oh. Okay, we need, we don't want to close the public hearing at this point. That was gonna be the next.
We can leave it open.
We can leave that open for right now.
Public comment.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the next step that we're going to go through is really the sort of the meat of. I shut my microphone off. The next step is to really get into this.
Sorry, Chair, can I have the floor for a sec? The applicant reserved
Yes, you did.
time.
Sorry, Mr. Pease, you
and
did.
He wasn't asked if he wanted to respond.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tim Pease again on behalf of the applicant. I really want to focus my comments on the information that the back and forth in the public comment section with Member Bazinet about the bulk architectural style and so forth. So that particular standard is found in section 165-9 under conditional uses. It's A4. And in it, it talks about that the proposed use shall conform to the general physical development pattern, not the specific development pattern. Again, with respect to architectural style, building bulk and extent, and intensity of use. There's really three different items there. So architectural style, we've have profiles of the proposed buildings for this particular project. We've got a number of pictures of the local area. I think everyone admits that in the local area, there is not a general pattern. It's kind of hit and miss. There's single stories, duplexes, a story and a half, 2 stories and so forth. So the general pattern is kind of a little all over the place. When it comes to building bulk, and again, we focus on the immediate area. So the purpose of the chapter, the term immediate area shall include all properties located within the same block and within 500 feet of the site of the proposed use. It doesn't say the center of the lot. So when we did our calculations, we went out 500 feet from the perimeter of the lot. With respect to the comment about it being math, I would completely agree. It is math. It is capable to be calculated by looking at the lots, looking at the information that's in the city records to determine what the building area is for each lot. That work was completed by the engineer. It's in our Exhibit 8. It's 3 pages. I'm not going to stand up here and read it. but I would ask you to have a look at it. Look at the information. It has lot size, footprint of the buildings, building percentage, pavement is in there as well. And when you get to the end, within 500 feet of the neighborhood, the building percentage of lot coverage is 11.2%. In Maine Woods, it's 8.8%. It's lower. And that's consistent with what the city engineer found as well with his methodology. So I would submit to you that the evidence, the math, shows that the density is far less or just less than the immediate area within 500 feet. And finally, when we talk about height and existing ratio, that's the building bulk standard. Again, just compare the visual photos of what's happening in the neighborhood with what is proposed. And I think you'll have to conclude that it is not inconsistent with that immediate area. If there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll have a seat.
Any other questions for Mr. Pease? Seeing none? Thank you. Yep, appreciate it. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before I get into all the logistics of just going through the standard?
Well, actually, I think that the next item should be a vote on the content of the record for the preliminary plat review.
Yeah, the exhibits and so forth.
Yes.
Yes.
And I can talk about that if that's what you want to do.
Sure.
Next.
Sure.
All right.
You
Want me to talk now?
Go for it.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that the board make a vote on the content of the record for preliminary plat review. The applicant submitted a list of the record, and I'm going to suggest that we stick with those numbers on that list and that item as a base list when considering what's included in the record. What you have in front of you as the word graph stamped on, that is initially the applicant's list, but there are blue lineouts and changes to that list. Those blue lineouts and changes were made by staff. Because staff felt that those edits should be made for accuracy of what is included in the record. There are also a number of items at the end of that list that are all in blue. And those items that are all in blue, compare that list starting with looks like starting with item 65. Those are all the new materials that were received since the last meeting. So the list that you now have in that document that has the graph stamp on it, that's a list that I suggest that you look at in order, and then if you have any questions that you ask staff about in terms of just what is in the record. Now, this won't be a closing of the record because it's a two-part process and the applicant's going to have to submit. If the preliminary subdivision plat is approved, the applicant's going to have to submit more materials for the final plat review. But this vote would be to clarify as to what contents are in the record before you that you're going to be making your deliberations on and making your decisions on.
I did just want to clarify, there's some text in red, and that is also what staff added. It just looked different printed out, so.
Excellent. Thank you. Planning Officer Colette and City Solicitor Dave Sevchek. So, board members, so what we're going to do this second is we're going to, I'm inviting a motion on accepting what Dave just discussed, which is at the front of your package here is the list. I see Ken's got it right there. The list of exhibits is what it is kind of suggested as, and that's the documents with which we will be using and referring to as we go down through the standards. And so accepting this as our document of records. Any questions on that?
Sure.
Member Hugh? The microphone.
Sorry. We have another addendum Is this gonna be included?
I'm not really familiar. We've had so much come at us that I am not familiar. Planning Officer Colette.
The addendum is an addition to the findings that was provided by the applicant today. That's not part of the record. It's just findings, draft findings that it meets additional standards. So.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we weren't leaving something out.
Okay, I'll speak about that, I think, a little bit in just a second. Member Saucier?
Can we accept this as complete with the public hearing still open? And we still have to add today's speakers.
As to now?
We are just, you take a vote that the record consists of the list that starts on page 2 that's called the record and ends on page 10. There are 92 items, and you'd be taking a vote that that's the record. It's not closing the record.
Okay.
It is just stating that's the record for purposes of the preliminary plat review.
Would we say it as amended today with today's comments, I guess? Because today's comments would be part of this as well, wouldn't they?
This is a list of the record. This isn't the record. This is the list of the record. The record is what is referred to in this list.
But in each comment, we have people's comments listed individually here on the.
Those are written
the other one?
comments.
Okay, those are only written comments?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I misunderstood.
So this is a record of written materials. It does not list out every comment that was made publicly. It just lists the written comments.
Okay.
Yep.
So right now I'm looking for a motion that we accept these, Member Brush?
Does this list include all the stuff we received? For example, in the last session,
Yes.
we received some handouts from the members of the community. Does this list include all that stuff?
If the handouts they gave you or what they also emailed, everything listed in here is everything that's been emailed to us and then forwarded to the board, as well as what's been included in your packets every week. And we've, obviously we forwarded you everything up until the time of the meeting.
In other words, it does not include everything they gave us.
It should
Only if it
include,
came through email.
it shouldn't, yeah, I believe what they provided at the last meetings was also provided via email. So.
I don't think so. I'm particularly referring to, there was a map of the community showing the architectural style. And we only got that by hard copy.
I'm pretty sure that came by email.
Yeah, that came by email too.
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't get that email. Anyway, okay.
Yep. It did come by email. I can assure you of that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chair.
Yes, Member Boucher.
To continue on with what Member Saucier was saying, the meeting minutes would have the information there from the public verbal comment. And so I wonder if there will still be an addition here for today's meeting minutes. You see, yeah.
I'm not saying that there won't be things added to the record, but this is a list of the record as of today.
Thanks. It's just a point of clarity. I was just trying to kind of finish that discussion. Thank you.
Member you.
One more clarification. So we're trying to accept this as the record going into today. As a listing of the record as we go in today, and to accept that.
Up to today.
Up to today.
Up to today. That's correct.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this document called the record, list 1 through 92 as the list of the record going in today's meeting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet.
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and chair votes yes as well. Okay, having gotten through that, I would just like, before we get to the standards and to sort of, carry on from what we were just discussing, really, in my mind, this record and list is for reference as we go through the standards, which is what we are about to do. Okay. It's going to take some time. As best as I can tell, there are something like 59 standards in there, but I think that list grew over time. So I'm not sure how many standards we have. So this is going to take some time. It may not get done this evening, but I would like to think that we could move along and get it done. We'll see. If we need to take breaks, please say so. I think I'll probably take a break if we have to in another 45 minutes or an hour. We'll see where we're at, but please raise your hand, say something. If you have to go to the bathroom or have to leave, please say so. I would encourage board members or staff to jump in and speak up, throw something at me if you need to stop me. I want to move through this, so I want to keep moving fairly quickly. I don't want to waste a lot of time on stuff that we don't need to waste a lot of time on, but anything we need to talk about, we need to stop and talk about it. So,
should we put a time frame on it?
I'm sorry?
Should we put a time frame on it? I mean, we could be going to midnight.
I'm not going to feel good about going to midnight, but we'll see where we're at. Okay. My hope is that, let me get to that. The approach is going to be, according to myself and city solicitor, is using the standards as you have in front of you that have been modified to some extent by the staff. We want to start with part 2 first because part 1 references part 2. So we're going. Yes, sir.
Before we get into the criteria analysis, I'm going to make a suggestion that the board makes a couple of votes on a couple of easy, basic facts.
Okay.
Okay. And the first suggestion that I make the board would take a vote on the first 2 sentences on page 7 of the document you have in front of you. The first paragraph of the section called project description and permit requirements. The first 2 sentences of that says the project will consist of 60 residential units in 30 duplexes on a 12.13 acre parcel. And then it makes reference exhibits 1, 3, 7, and 42. I believe that, Anya, correct me if I'm wrong, should that 42 be changed to that other exhibit number that you had made those changes for me?
Yes, 42, that would be 79.
That
in the record.
instead of 42, the change should be to 79.
Are you talking about page 11?
Yes.
We're on
Page
page
11.
7. Well, actually, the page numbers might be different.
Yeah, they're page 11. It's page 11.
Page 11.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my page says 7, yours says 11, but it's the project description and permit requirements, the first 2 sentences. I just read the first sentence. The second sentence says the parcel is located in the low density residential LDR district, and there's a reference to exhibit 7. I'm going to suggest that the board make a motion that be the first finding of fact. Those 2 first sentences with those record references, except for where it says exhibit 42, that be changed to 79.
Just wanted to state for the record as well that the lot size is 12.09, not 12.13 acres. That's listed in the addendum.
So that change as well.
12.2, is that what you're saying?
12.09 acres.
What this should say is, the project will consist of 60 residential units and 30 duplexes. On a 12.09 acre parcel, exhibits 1, 3, 7, and 79.
Yes.
The parcel is located in the low density residential district, exhibit 7.
Yep. You got it? Good.
Member Brush?
Is the statement that 12.13 acre parcel correct?
It's 12.09.
Oh, wait, I don't know, which piece of paper are we looking at here?
That's listed on the addendum on page 1.
Page 7. Are we looking at the draft or?
So the draft that you have is the full findings. There's an addendum. Also, it doesn't have draft on it. Page 1 on that is where that's stated.
Mine says 12.13.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got that.
Should be correct.
Exhibit 7.
Just scratch it out.
Where it says the acreage correction.
And then the corrections, Mr. Chair, will reflect in the updated record next week.
I'm sorry?
These corrections that we're making will be reflected in the updated record next week, correct?
These corrections are made for the purpose so that you can make your motion to make the first finding of fact about these basic facts of the project. Once the motion is made, if it passes,
That's
that
the
will be
finding of
recorded
fact.
in the written
Yeah.
decision one way or the other as
Just-
one of your findings of fact.
I think that's why he's wanting us to make the corrections. He doesn't want us to have the incorrect finding of fact. So just to make life easier, the chair can make a motion. I move that we accept the project description as the project will consist of 60 residential units and 30 duplexes on a 12.09 acre parcel, exhibits 1, 3, 7, and 79. The parcel is located in the low density residential district, exhibit 7. Do I have a second on that? Can I get a roll call vote? Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume? Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
I'm going to make one more suggestion for a basic
you were.
finding of fact. If you go to the second paragraph in that same section, okay, the first sentence says the buildings in the project will be 2-story homes with pitched roofs, horizontal siding, asphalt shingles, and metal roofs, typical of most residential developments. And the citation there is at the bottom of the paragraph, exhibits 1, and it should say 79 instead of 42. So that's the only other suggestion I would make with regard to the general findings of fact.
Yeah, the 42 is blacked out. It should
Oh.
be
Oh, I see.
79.
Thank you.
Where do you see 42?
Yeah, it's way down at the
It's,
end of the
it's
paragraph, but
blacked
it's
out
all
under
blacked out
draft.
by the draft. It's down at the end of the paragraph.
The last section of the paragraph reads, section 165 dash 13 exhibit 1.
I see it.
Just the
And it
first
used to say
sentence,
42.
but
but we
that's
should
just
update
my
to
suggestion.
79.
You can change that if you want.
Then why are we changing the 79?
Yeah, that's not referenced in the first sentence.
The
That exhibit's not referenced there.
Right, but isn't that the site that where those things will be found in the record? If it's not the site where those things will be found in the record, I thought that was what that site was for down there.
I think in the record that would be referenced in probably the building elevations, which I can look at that. Yeah, I just think the statement that the buildings in the project will be 2-story homes, that would be
That's
not
shown
not on
in
exhibit
the
79.
application.
Yeah, but not on exhibit 79. I'm
Oh,
just providing.
okay, well all right, then there should be a reference to the place in the record where that is shown. And you can ask the applicant if there's a better reference than that. If you want.
Mr. Peace.
Yes, Tim Pease on behalf of the applicant, exhibit number 18 as the elevations.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move Further project description, the buildings in the project will be two-story homes with pitched roof, horizontal siding, asphalt shingles, and metal roofs, typical of most residential development. And I'm referencing Exhibit 18. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hune, thank you. A roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, so we've gotten through somewhat painfully, but I think that's important to get the project description correct. Let me just go back to the logistics a little bit because there are a couple more things I wanted to point out there. One is going back to the standards. Some of the standards you're going to find are repetitive as we go through. We'll discuss them as much as we need to, but I would hope that once we've discussed one, if we get to another that's similar, we would be able to move right through that without renewing discussion again. A minimum of 4 votes is needed for approval of a standard, otherwise is not approved as the project having met that standard. Final approval or denial should be easy. Once the standards are considered, if any standard is unable to be resolved and is not approved or approved with conditions, which we may do if we feel it's necessity, then we should not approve the preliminary plat. If all standards are approved, then the preliminary plat should be approved. I was starting to speak earlier about how we're going to start with part 2 because part 1 references part 2. And so by accomplishing a review of part 2 standards, which I have on page 18 of your packet, when we get through these, we will have actually accomplished the first item of part 1. And so, I think without any, I would like to make sure before we start just running through the standards, if the staff or board members, city solicitor have any more comments or questions? If not, we're going to get right started in them. Good? Okay.
So once we go through all of these, if they meet all the criteria.
Thank you.
Statement here is the last thing. Is
Yeah.
the motion.
Review criteria. Yeah. Yeah. Member Hune reminded me of one more thing that I wanted to point out for the board, particularly. So once we get through parts 1 and part 2, we will be able to those 2 parts are what is demanded in the code for approval of the preliminary plat. So we will then be able to approve or disapprove the preliminary plat. And then there are 4 other sections. If you've looked at this list, which I hope you have, you'll see there are 4 other sections in here beyond the first 2. We can then continue, depending on how much time we have and how everyone feels, all the rest of those or some of those, or push some of those off until the next meeting. Okay? It would be great to at least get through the preliminary plat if we can this evening. Understood? Okay, so part 2 of the project meets the main state guidelines for subdivisions under 30 AMRS 4404. So for those that aren't sure what that means, 165, 128 C1 of our code demands that we meet 4404 of the state rules. Again, a lot of these you'll find are fairly similar to what we've already discussed or will be discussing. So section 1 standard is pollution. The proposed subdivision will not result in undue water or air pollution. In making this determination, it shall at least consider the elevation of the land above sea level, the nature of soils and subsoils, the slope of the land and its effect on effluent, the availability of streams for disposal of effluents, and the applicable state and local health and water resource rules and regulations. Suggested findings would be the board finds upon review of the post-construction stormwater maintenance plan, erosion and sedimentation control plan, FEMA flood map, urban impaired stream map, and the main DEP stormwater permit exhibits 11 and 15 and sheet C3 grading plan and sheet C8 erosion and sediment control of exhibit 79 that the proposed subdivision will not result in undue water or air pollution. Do you have any questions or comments on that item? Member Boucher?
All right, the way I would phrase this question is based off those maps and things like that that we've mentioned as the exhibits or findings. I understand those items, but there is a point of fact about the work that's been done in the previous months where the land has been raised. Do we feel like that needs to be introduced and discussed as well as part of the, like, are we judging it by today's state or by the state of the original plan before the work was started? It's a question I have just for open discussion.
That's a good question. City Solicitor, do you want to chime in on this one? Do you understand this question?
I think so, but the standard that has to be met is the proposed subdivision will not result in undue water or air pollution. That's the standard. Your vote would be on whether the application meets that standard. Whether the evidence in the record as is spelled out in the finding meets that standard.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Member Saucier.
Just to chime in on it, this main DEP site location, any municipality you go to, just because this was appealed doesn't make it the timeline reset existing conditions to the work that's already been done. It's your existing conditions go back to what was existing at the beginning. I think that's where you were going with that, and it would be typical precedent. I think DEP has a year of like 1973 or 1985 or something that they make you go back to with certain site law submissions. So it's the standard for this is always to go back to the pre-development condition.
That makes sense to me. If I was supposed to interject, but I appreciate you phrasing it that way. The additional work that they've done doesn't, we're looking for the findings that were provided by the DEP and other places. And those statements are, stand on their own. Yeah.
If you compared it to what was out there today, it would be an easier standard to meet, actually.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions on this item? If none, I would look for a motion.
Before the motion is made, Councilor, could I say one thing? When you read it as exhibits 11 and 15, but the motion should say exhibits 11 through 15. I just want to make sure that's part of the motion.
I'm sorry. So we're clear on that. That's exhibits 11 through 15. That was my mistake in reading it. Member Hume.
Yes, I move that the board finds upon review of the post-construction stormwater maintenance plan, erosion and sedimentation plan, FEMA flood map, urban impaired stream, major and the main stormwater permit exhibits 11 through 15, meet the criteria.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Did
Just
you intend it?
To clarify, does the motion include the rest of the findings? Because you didn't read all the findings in your motion.
Okay. Let me modify that to say, amend that to say the grading, land and sheet. C8 erosion and sedimentation and control of exhibit, that the property and subdivision will not result in undue water and air pollution.
Yes.
Exhibit 79, did you say? And sheet
Exhibit
C
79
and sheet C3, yeah, of grading plan and sheet C8, yeah. Okay, just want to make sure that was all read
and sheet C3
into the motion.
Thank you. For anyone that doesn't know, I mean, these, we've got some marked up stuff here. So I mean, we can read. We can read. Do I have a second on Member Hewens' motion?
I second that.
Member Saucier, thank you. A roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 2, standards, sufficient water. The proposed subdivision has sufficient water available for the reasonably foreseeable needs of the subdivision. Discussion? Motion? Go for it. Member Boucher.
I move that the board finds upon review of the certification from the Bangor Water District Exhibit 35, proposed subdivision has sufficient water available for the reasonably foreseeable needs of the subdivision.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hune, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Section 2 is done. Section 3, standard municipal water supply. The proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the existing water supply if one is to be used, which it is. Questions? Discussion? Motion? Member Saucier?
I move that the board finds upon review of the certification from the Bangor Water District Exhibit 35 that the proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the existing water supply.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hune, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 4, standard erosion. The proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction of land's capacity to hold water so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition results. Questions, comments? A motion? Member Saucier, you were kind of headed towards your microphone. I think you were going to.
Chair, could I?
Yes, sir.
interject?
Certainly.
So
I told you could. That's why.
right. So on the findings, on the last line of the findings, and I don't know if, I think,
I included your edit to the.
okay, so the
or.
word or was removed already. Okay, never mind, Chair, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Member Saucier?
I move that the board finds upon review of the post-construction stormwater maintenance plan, erosion and sedimentation control plan, FEMA flood map, urban impaired stream map, and the main DEP stormwater permit exhibits 11 through 15, and sheet C3 grading plan and sheet C8 erosion and sedimentation control plan. Scratch that and erosion and sedimentation control of exhibit 79, that the proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the land's capacity to hold water.
Thank you. Seconds.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Section 5, standard traffic. The proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to the use of highways or public roads existing or proposed. And if the proposed subdivision requires driveways or entrances onto a state or state aid highway located outside the urban compact area of an urban compact municipality as defined by Title 23, Section 754. The Department of Transportation has provided documentation indicating that the driveways or entrances conform to Title 23, Section 704, and any rules adopted under that section. Questions, comments? A motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Member Hume.
upon review of the traffic analysis and associated materials, exhibits 16, 29, and 30, as well as a letter from the applicant referenced in exhibit 42, the board finds that the proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 6, standard sewage disposal. The proposed subdivision will provide for adequate sewage waste disposal and will not cause an unreasonable burden on municipal services if they are utilized. Questions? I think I notes in there that we're not going to be using municipal services. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a different thing. That's the next one down. Questions or motion? Member Saucier?
The board finds upon review of sewer capacity certification from the Bangor wastewater management plant, Exhibit 4 and other materials, that the proposed subdivision will provide for adequate sewage waste disposal and will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality's services.
I believe it's exhibit 34. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 7, standard municipal solid waste disposal. The proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality's ability to dispose of solid waste if municipal services are to be used. They're using a private company, so nonetheless, that should be fairly easy to understand and digest. Member Saucier?
The board finds that the proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality's ability to dispose of solid waste because the subdivision will use a private waste disposal company as indicated in Exhibit 83.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
I'm sorry do we have to motion each time?
yes, we do.
I caught that he didn't motion that time. I'm sorry.
I didn't the last time either, but I thought because it said, do we? Because I didn't the last time either.
You didn't what?
I didn't say.
Didn't motion.
Yeah, I said upon.
Oh,
review,
I see what you're saying.
board finds, because we're finding, we're not moving. If
No,
we
there are
find-
motions each time and I assumed that when you spoke the last time that you were making a motion.
I did not the
Mhm.
last two times. Well, yeah, I mean, I was making a motion, but I didn't say I'm making a motion. So do we
Well,
need to?
If I may,
Say it.
if I may, yeah. We're moving that the project meets the standard. And the findings of fact are why.
Mhm.
So I think saying you move that it meets the standard And the findings of fact are is really probably the best way.
I thought we were finding.
You're
we're actually
you're
moving.
making a motion to make that finding.
Okay,
Fair enough.
Yep.
He's the attorney.
well, so should it. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I started out that way, but then I thought we were finding, so I didn't know what, I thought finding and
All
moving.
right. Well, why don't you do that one again? So we at least are good from here.
I move that the board finds that the proposed subdivision will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality's ability to dispose of solid waste because the subdivision will use a private waste disposal company as indicated in Exhibit 83.
Thank you. Still a second from Member Boucher.
Are we on section 6 or section
7?
7.
Yep. Second.
I have a second from Member Boucher. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet.
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume.
Yes.
Member Saucier.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Did they also need to redo section 6? Because the motion wasn't made on that as well. I just wanted to clarify.
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I can't
Did they, sorry, did they need to redo the motion on section 6? Because he didn't.
We didn't say it. It was implied for sure, but
I took it as implied. If you want to redo the motion, go ahead for the record.
that's up to the chair.
I wouldn't want things to get fouled up now just because of some little thing like that. So let's go back and do section 6 again. So
looking at it.
Yeah.
I move that the board,
And let me clarify, we're now on section 6. We've done section 7, so we're going back to section 6. Yes.
the standard too.
The standard is sewage disposal. The proposed subdivision will provide for adequate sewage waste disposal, will not cause an unreasonable burden on municipal services if they are utilized.
Sorry about that, everyone.
That's all right. Member Saucier?
The board find upon review of sewer capacity certification from the Bangor Waste Management Plant, Exhibit 34, and other materials that the proposed subdivision will provide for adequate sewage waste disposal and will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality's services.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. And so roll call vote, Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush.
Yes.
Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume.
Yes.
Member Saucier.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, we've done 6, we've done 7, we're now doing section 8. Standard, aesthetic, cultural, and natural values. The proposed subdivision will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area. The aesthetics, historic sites, significant wildlife habitat identified by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife or the municipality, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas, or any public rights for physical or visual access to the shoreline. Questions, comments? Do I have a motion? Member Hume?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the board finds upon review of photographs of the surrounding architecture and neighborhood, Exhibit 19 and Exhibit 40, and the proposed subdivision will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty, I
believe that must be. Yeah.
That word should be
the area
beauty.
or aesthetics. Further, upon review of the final site plan, Exhibit 79, and other materials, the board finds that there will be open space, trails, and pedestrian walkways, and will increase the visual, natural, and aesthetics and use of the area.
He doesn't need to read all this.
Yes, he does.
He does.
He does need to read it.
The whole
Carry
thing.
on.
The buildings themselves will be two-story homes with pitched roofs, horizontal siding, asphalt shingles, and metal roofs. Typical of the most residential developments, the surrounding area does not have a predominant architectural style and contains a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom buildings, including some duplexes. The intensity of use and density of the project in terms of the ratio of building to the land area will be comparable to that of the surrounding neighborhood. Vehicular access will be by 2 entrances onto Lancaster Avenue and East Broadway, respectively. Notably, the project will also include 9 acres of open green space for community members to enjoy. The individual units will be sold to buyers with a homeowners association holding title to the common areas, managing the development and enforcing association rules. The rest of it too?
Yes.
No, additionally, based on information known, shown in exhibits 88 to 90, the board finds that the proposed subdivision does not contain any designated historical sites, significant wildlife habitat identified by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, or the municipality, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas, and is not close to a shoreline. Given this finding and those above, the board finds that the proposed development meets the standard above.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Sorry, just wanted to, you said 2-bedroom buildings. Did you mean 2-story buildings?
Yeah, it's marked out.
It says 2-story.
I said 2-story.
In the second
I
paragraph?
thought you did too.
Yeah, I said 2-story, 1 and 2-story building.
Or 2-bedroom.
Yeah. As she said, yeah.
Okay.
Just correct, so we correct that to 2-story.
Yeah, well, the buildings themselves will be a 2-story homes.
It's this one here, 2-story at the end of that paragraph. The 1 and 2-story, you said 1 and 2 bedroom, so we'll just correct that.
Okay.
No.
We'll amend that to say.
We know it's past your bedtime.
1 and 2-story buildings, including some duplexes.
Thank you. I didn't get a second on that yet.
Second.
Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
No.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
No.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay.
Or can I?
No. You have to vote.
Then it'll be a no vote.
And the chair votes yes. What do we have?
I counted Bazinet, Brush, and Saucy. No, that's 3, and then 4 yes.
Yeses.
So that would be a majority.
Okay, thank you. Item section 9. Standard, conformity with local ordinances and plans. The proposed subdivision conforms with a duly adopted subdivision regulation or ordinance, comprehensive plan, development plan, or land use plan, if any. In making this determination, the municipal reviewing authority may interpret these ordinances or plans. Discussion. Comments. Motion. Member Hume.
Yes, I'll say that, I'll move that the, as noted in findings above, the board finds that the proposed subdivision conforms to the city of Bangor subdivision ordinance. The board also finds that the proposed subdivision conforms to the 2022 comprehensive plan for the city of Bangor.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet. Thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Section 10. Standard, financial and technical capacity. The subdivider has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the standards of this section. Questions? Comments? Move to a motion. Member Saucier?
I move that the board find upon review of the applicant's certificate of good standing, Exhibit 5, and construction loan and statement of technical capacity shown in Exhibit 84, that the subdivider has adequate financial and technical capacity to complete this proposed subdivision.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hume, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That's section 10. Section 11. Standard. Surface waters, outstanding river segments, whenever situated entirely or partially within the watershed of any pond or lake or within 250 feet of any wetland, great pond or river as defined in Title 38, Chapter 3, Subchapter 1, Article 2B, the proposed subdivision will not adversely affect the quality of the body of water or unreasonably affect the shoreline of that body of water. When lots in a subdivision have frontage on an outstanding river segment, the proposed subdivision plan must require principal structures to have a combined lot, shore frontage, and setback from the normal high water mark of 500 feet. There's a couple items there. The standard, do I all? It's inapplicable.
Well, why don't you read it?
Okay. To avoid circumventing the intent of this provision, whenever a proposed subdivision adjoins shoreland strip narrower than 250 feet, which is not lotted, the proposed subdivision shall be reviewed as if lot lines extend to the shore. The frontage and setback provisions of this paragraph do not apply either within areas zoned as general development or its equivalent under shoreland zoning, Title 38, Chapter 3, Subchapter 1, Article 2B, or within areas designated by ordinance as densely developed. The determination of which areas are densely developed must be based on a finding that existing development met the definitional requirements of Section 4401, subsection 1 on September 23rd of 1983. This standard is, yes, sir.
You finished reading, right?
I did.
I think I would have the planning officer speak to the original draft and the change that was made there.
Okay. Please. Playing off,
Sorry,
what?
I'm
That's all right.
There's
Take
the
your time.
original draft. So this section really just applies to the shoreland zone and any wetlands defined as being, as the shoreland being covered under the shoreland zone, and the wetlands on this property would not fall under that definition, which is why it's spelled out in the finding here that the wetland would meet the definition of Title 38, Chapter 3, et cetera. So essentially, that's why it was determined that this section was inapplicable. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
completely.
Could we have the chair, would it be all right for the applicant's attorney to speak regarding that?
Certainly.
That proposed finding as well, because the reason why I'm doing this is because the applicant's attorney submitted a proposed finding and then staff suggested that it be revised. And I just want to get the applicant's attorney's input on that.
Yep. Mr. Brayley? Thank you.
The reason it does not apply is that it is not within the shoreline zone. The wetlands on this site are not considered integral to things in the shoreline zone. And so they don't count as and there's no outstanding river segment, pond, river, stream. So that's why we agree with staff in retrospect that this is not applicable.
Thank you. And this is the engineer for the applicant, not the attorney for the applicant, but also might I quiz you as to the definition of shoreland zone is typically 250 feet within a body of water. Is that correct?
Correct. But it's not like, it's not 250 feet within the shore, like of an isolated wetland.
Right.
Like we have here.
Right.
It has to be a wetland that is associated with a.
So I said a body of water. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's not part of the shoreline zone.
Thank you. You're good. Thank you. Appreciate the input, everybody. So we have a standard, we have reviewed findings, but we haven't made a motion. So Member Basnet.
I move that the board finds that this standard is inapplicable since the proposed subdivision is not situated entirely or partially within the watershed of any pond or lake or within 250 feet of any great pond, river, or wetland that meets the definition of Title 38, Chapter 3, Subchapter 1, Article 2B.
Excellent. Thank you.
There's a lot of strike throughs here. so-
Everything else is struck through though. Thank you.
Way through.
Yep. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That was section 11. Section 12, standard groundwater. The proposed subdivision will not, alone or in conjunction with existing activities, adversely affect the quality or quantity of groundwater.
Sure. Well,
Member Hume?
make a motion that the board finds upon review of the erosion and sediment control plan, maintenance plan of stormwater management facilities, FEMA flood map and Department of Environmental Protection stormwater permit, that the proposed subdivision will not adversely affect the quality or quantity of groundwater in any way. Exhibits 11, 12, 13, and 15.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Boucher, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 13. Standard flood areas. Based on the Federal Emergency Management Agency's flood boundary and floodway maps and flood insurance rate maps, and information presented by the applicant whether the subdivision is in a flood-prone area. If the subdivision or any part of it is in such an area, the subdivider shall determine the 100-year flood elevation and flood hazard boundaries within the subdivision. The proposed subdivision plan must include a condition of plan approval requiring that principal structures in the subdivision will be constructed with their lowest floor, including the basement, at least 1 foot above the 100-year flood elevation. Questions? Motion, Member Bazinet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds upon review of the FEMA flood map, Exhibit 13, that the area is not flood prone and therefore finds that this standard does not apply to the proposed development.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 14, freshwater wetlands. All freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision have been identified on any map submitted as part of the application, regardless of the size of the wetlands. Any mapping of freshwater wetlands may be done with the help of the local soil and water conservation district. Questions, comments, or a motion? Member Saucier, you have your hand on the trigger.
Go ahead. The board finds that based on the review of sheet EX pre-development conditions and C1 subdivision plan, exhibit 79, all freshwater wetlands within the proposed subdivision have been mapped. Period.
Yep. Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Boucher?
No,
Yep.
you also didn't move this time.
Move.
I'm sorry.
I move
Thank you.
that
Okay.
the board find
And I
what
would
I just
second.
said.
Thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that, though.
I got it right.
Thank you. And you second it as well? Member Boucher seconds
I
it?
apologize for being like the
No,
nitpicker over
that's
here.
okay. That's okay. All right. So we have a motion. We have a second. And so roll call vote, Member Bazinet,
Yes.
Member Boucher,
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
Member Hayes,
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
Member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 14A, farmland is the standard. All farmland within the proposed subdivision have been identified on maps submitted as part of the application. Any mapping of farmland may be done with the help of local soil and water conservation district. This one should be pretty easy. Member Saucier?
I move that the board find that upon review of the email from the city assessor, exhibit 25, that there is no farmland within the proposed subdivision and therefore the standard is inapplicable.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Brush, second, and a roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Standard, section 15, standard river, stream, or brook. Any river, stream, or brook within or abutting the proposed subdivision has been identified on any map submitted as part of the application. For purposes of this section, river, stream, or brook has the same meaning as in Title 38, Section 480B, subsection 9. Member Brush.
I move that the planning board find that based on the review of the final site plans shown in Exhibit 79, that there are no rivers, streams, or brooks within the abutting proposed subdivision.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Saucier. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hune,
Yes.
member Saucier, and the chair votes yes. Section 16, standards, stormwater. The proposed subdivision will provide for adequate stormwater management.
Mr. Chair.
Member Hune?
Yes, I move that the board finds that upon review of the Department of Environmental Protection Stormwater Permit, Exhibit 15, the maintenance plan of the stormwater management facilities, Exhibit 12, the housekeeping performance standards, Exhibit 10, the stormwater management plan contained in Exhibit 84, and the proposed subdivision will provide for adequate stormwater, and Exhibit 7942, that the
Nope, back
proposed
up.
and
Sheet C.
Sheet C3, C8 to C14, and D1 of Exhibit 79, that the proposed subdivision will provide for adequate stormwater management.
Thank you. And just to be accurate here, what you said, right, is C8 through C14?
Yep.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Section 17, standards, spaghetti lots. I always thought that was a funny name on this one. If any lots in the proposed subdivision have shore frontage on a river, stream, brook, great pond, or coastal wetland, as these features are defined in Title 38, Section 480B, none of the lots created within the subdivision have a lot depth to shore frontage ratio greater than 5:1. Member Bazinet?
Finds that this bond review of the final site plan exhibits 79. None of the lots in the proposed subdivision have frontage on river, stream, brook, great pond, or coastal wetlands. Therefore, finds this standard to be applicable to the proposed development.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Saucier, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush? Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Section 18, standard, lake phosphorus concentration. Long-term cumulative effects of the proposed subdivision will not unreasonably increase a Great Pond's phosphorus concentration during the construction phase and life of the proposed subdivision. Easy one. Member Brush?
I move that the board finds that based on the review of the final site plans in Exhibit 79, there are no great ponds near the subdivision and therefore finds this standard to be inapplicable to the proposed development.
Thank you. Member Bazinet with a second. Thank you. Roll call vote. Member
Yes.
Bazinet?
Sorry, Chair.
That's
Yes.
That's okay. Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Section 19, impact on adjoining municipality. For all proposed subdivision that crosses municipal boundaries, the proposed subdivision will not cause unreasonable traffic congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to the use of existing public ways in an adjoining municipality in which the part of the subdivision is located.
Mr. Chair,
Member Hume?
I move that the board finds that this section inapplicable as the development does not cross municipal boundaries based on a review of the final site plans in Exhibit 79.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. See, what number is this one? Number 20, the last one of this section. Standard. Land subject to liquid harvesting.
Mr. Chair,
Member Hume?
I move that the board finds upon review of the email from the city assessor, Exhibit 25, that there are no working forest land within the proposed subdivision referred to as being tree growth program, and therefore this standard is inapplicable.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, you've got that one. And so roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And Chair Perkins votes yes as well. Okay, so we got through part 2. Good job and congratulations. This first part. The second first part. All right, so we're going to go backwards. So you want to flip back to page 11. Oh, 11, page 12. Yep. Part 1. Correct. So it's on page 12 down on the bottom. Part 1, the project meets the major subdivision criteria under 165, 128C. And this first standard is basically saying we just did what we did. Okay. So the first standard says the subdivision shall meet the state of Maine guidelines for subdivision approval contained in 30A MRSA 4404, which is what we just did.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Hume, Member Hume.
I move that the board finds that the subdivision meets the standards under the state of Maine guidelines in 30-A MRSA 4404. These have been articulated in part 2 below.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That was item 1 of part 2. Now, item 2 of part 2, standard. The plat shall conform to the existing zoning regulations regarding lot dimensions and areas.
Chair, this is actually part 1 we're talking about. Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I say part 2?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
We're in
So
part
we're in
1.
part 1. That was item number 1. Thank you for the correction. And we are now on item number 2. We just got done number 1 and we're on item number 2 of part 1. Standard, the plat shall conform to existing zoning regulations regarding lot dimensions and areas. Remember you?
Yes, Chair. I move that the board finds upon review of the final plan set, Exhibit 7942.
Nope, just 79.
That the plat will be built in the low-density residential district and conforms to the existing zoning regulations of that district. Specifically, see General Notes Sheet C-1 of Exhibit 79.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the chair. So that's number 2. Number 3, standard, at least one side of every lot shall abut an improved public street, a planning board approved private street, or a proposed public street. Member Bazinet?
that at least one side of the lot which the development is located ought to be approved into public streets on Lancaster Avenue and Essex Street and the proposed extension of a public street, East Broadway, and therefore finds that the proposed development meets the above standard.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hume, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush, member Hayes. Member Hayes? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. I just didn't hear you. Testing. It's getting later. Member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Standard 4, the side lot lines shall be at right angles to straight street lines and radial to curved street lines unless a variation from this will provide improved solar access. Of course, we don't have any solar issues on this one. Motion? Member Hume?
Yes, I move that the board find that sheet
C1.
C1 subdivision plan, exhibit 79, shows that the proposed development will meet these lot line standards.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Standard corner lots shall have adequate width to permit required building setback from both streets. Member Brush,
I move that the board finds that there are no corner lots and therefore this section is inapplicable.
thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. We're getting faster. Standard, all proposed streets shall provide connection with existing streets. Member Bazinet,
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds upon review of sheet C2 road plan exhibit 79 that all proposed streets will provide connection with existing streets.
do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Standard, streets shall be laid out so that no intersection. Right, that no intersection shall be at an angle of less than 60 degrees. Member Bazinet,
Chairman, I move that the board find upon review of sheet C2 road plan exhibit 79 that all streets will be laid out so that no intersection will be at an angle of less than 60 degrees.
thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Standard number 8, there shall be no permanent dead end streets without a paved turnaround having a minimum outside diameter of 100 feet. As an alternative, short 500 feet or less in length, residential access streets may have paved hammerhead turnarounds if approved by the city engineer. Member Bazinet,
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds upon review of sheet C2 road plan exhibit 79 that there will be no permanent dead end streets in the proposed development.
excellent. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Standard number 9, land designated on the official map for right-of-way purposes shall be set aside in the subdivision for that purpose and deeded to the city. Member Bazinet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds that this provision is inapplicable because there is no land designated on the official map for right of purposes within the proposed subdivision.
Right of way purposes. Yep.
Yes,
Thank you.
right of way correction. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet.
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush. Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume.
Yes.
Member Saucier.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Street grade shall not be less than 1% or more than 6%. Upon review and approval by the city engineer, grades greater or less than this standard may be allowed.
Mr. Chair,
Member Hume.
I move that upon review of the sheet C3,
Grading.
grading, plan C5, Wildwood Drive profile, C6 Firefly Lane profile, and C7 site layout, East Broadway extension, Exhibit 79. The board finds that there will be no street grades less than 1% nor than 6%.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Bazinet, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet.
Yes.
Member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush. Member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume.
Yes.
Member Saucier.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. Standard right-of-way widths. Street right-of-way widths shall not be less than the following. There's a chart here, street type residential access, 50 feet, residential 60 feet, collector, commercial, industrial service, 80 feet, major arterial, 100 feet, freeway, divided highway, 120 feet, rural, 66. And that was item A under right-of-way widths. Item B under right-of-way widths says notwithstanding subsection C11A above, a commercial or industrial service right-of-way width may be reduced to 66 feet where the right-of-way terminates in a cul-de-sac and services no through traffic. The cul-de-sac serves no more than 10 lots and the city engineer issues a written report that the reduced right-of-way width will be sufficient to accommodate the projected traffic generation and utility needs of the proposed development served by the street. Member Bazinet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds upon review of sheet C2 Road Plan Exhibit 42 that the street right-of-way widths are within requirements outlined above and are acceptable.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yeah, we didn't correct that to 79, Exhibit 79.
42 should be 79.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we could
All
amend
right,
that
let me
motion.
reread that, please.
Would you read that, please, again?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds upon review of sheet C2 Road Plan Exhibit 79 that the street right-of-way widths are within the requirements outlined above and are acceptable.
Thank you. So we've revised that motion. Do we have a second on that? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Bazinet.
Yes.
Boucher.
Yes.
Brush.
Yes.
Hayes.
Yes.
Hume.
Yes.
Saucier.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Standard 12. A, where a subdivision borders on or contains an existing or proposed collector or arterial street, the planning board shall require that access to such streets be limited to one of the following means. The arrangement of the lots so that the back on the collector arterial street and front onto a parallel service street. No access shall be provided from the collector arterial street and screening shall be provided in a strip shall be provided in a strip of land along the rear property line of such lots. A series of cul-de-sac U-shaped streets or short loops entered from and designated generally at right angles to such a parallel service street with rear lines of the terminal lots backing on the collector arterial street. A marginal access or service road separated from the collector arterial street by a planting or grass strip and have access therefore to a limited number of points. Shared drives to provide access to 2 or more lots. Member Brush?
Chair, before there's a
Member Brush, hold on a minute.
is this out in the proposed finding should the 42 also say 79? Is that?
Yeah, and that's been changed.
That has been
That's in our
changed.
I'm sorry.
Yep. It's okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds that upon review of sheet C1 subdivision plan and sheet C2 road plan exhibit 79, the proposed development is in compliance with the above standards.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Hume, thank you. And a roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher.
Yes.
Member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes.
Yes.
Member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number 13, standard. The number and spacing of access drives shall be at a minimum be restricted to no more than one two-way drive every 120 feet of frontage on such streets, nor shall such drives be located within 120 feet of the right-of-way line of the cross street at any intersection. One-way entrances and one-way exits may be closer spaced, but no such one-way entrances shall be located within 150 feet of such other entrance or two-way drive, nor such shall such one-way exit be located within 150 feet of such other exit or a two-way drive. That's a tongue twister. John, did you write that? Member Bazinet.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board finds that upon review of sheet C2 road plan exhibit 79, the proposed development is in compliance with the above standards.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Brush, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Number 14, standard. A subdivision shall provide for connectivity with other potential subdivisions on bordering parcels. This shall be accomplished through establishment of reservations for street right-of-way to adjacent parcels where appropriate. Subdivision shall allow for connectivity of trail systems and the reservation of easements for walking and biking trails. Which is certainly a part of this. Member Hume?
Chair, I move that the board finds that upon review of sheet C1 subdivision plan, sheet C2 road plan, sheet C15 sidewalk plan, and sheet D1 post-development plan exhibit 79, that the proposed development is in compliance with the above standards.
Thank you. Member Bazinet with a second roll call vote. Member Bazinet,
Yes.
member Boucher,
Yes.
member Brush,
Yes.
member Hayes,
Yes.
member Hume,
Yes.
member Saucier,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Standard number 15, the preliminary plat shall contain all information required in subsection C1 through 14 above. Just kind of wrapping this all up and saying that they're showing all those things so that we know. Member Bazinet?
Mr. Chairman, I move that based upon review of the final site plans provided in exhibit 79 and the findings made above for the standards in section 165-128C 1 through 14, the board finds that the preliminary plat for the proposed development meets the standard above.
Excellent. Thank you. Do I have a second? Member Hume, thank you. Roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, that gets us through parts 2 and parts 1, which allows us to move beyond the preliminary plat. So the next thing we should do is actually vote on the preliminary plat. Is that-
Yes, I think there should be a final vote. The choices are the motion is to approve the preliminary plat, approve it with conditions, or disapprove it. Now, I would suggest that put into the motion is a condition that that it be conditioned on approval of the other permit requirements,
And
which is later. Yeah.
yep, there were 2 additional conditions as well, requested conditions. Yeah, I'll state those. and
bringing the zones together.
Bringing the parcels.
Why don't you
map
let her
lots.
tell you?
Yep, stated in the memo here. And then also,
What was the first one?
that the map lots, all the map lots involved in the project, which are listed in the memo, be combined. And then also request a condition approval on the applicant posting a surety bond to cover the cost for any improvements not completed by the end of the board's review of the project. Yep.
Okay. So what we're looking for is a motion, to approve the conditions or not approve the, preliminary plat for the project. And we have a 3 conditions. The condition number 1 is that, it's approved based upon our review of the further standards.
Permit requirements.
Henceforth. And that map 044 lots 39, 40, 41, and 43 should be combined.
Sorry, that would be 039, 040, 041, and 043. I think you only said 3 of them. Okay, just want to make sure.
And per order 165, 130A, a surety bond is needed to guarantee completion of public improvements as outlined in the contract documents. I didn't say exactly where you did that, but you can say that.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Good. Do I have a motion?
You make the motion.
You want me to make a motion? I'm happy to make a
Chair,
motion.
why don't you have somebody else make the motion? All right.
Yep, it's map 44 lots 039, 040, 041, and 043. I'll slow down. Oh, I've got it written down right here. There's where you are, Mark. Right there. There's the 2 conditions. Right there. You want to do it? Oh, okay, well, I'll do that. That one seems to be.
Too much for me to remember.
I move that we approve the plat, the preliminary plat with conditions, the following 3. That we approve future upon future review of the additional permit requirements, that we combine it's map lots map 044 lots 039, 040, 041, and 043, and that an surety bond is made as outlined in the contract documents.
Correct. Everybody good? Okay. So that was Member Boucher. Member Sasha, do you second? Thank you. So roll call vote. Member Bazinet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush? Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. So that's kind of a good spot to determine, do we keep going? It's 10 o'clock, it's 5 of 10. Do we take a break?
Chair, I move that we adjourn for tonight. We've made great progress.
Yep.
Chair, before we adjourn, I'd like to go over the process that we anticipate for part two. Yeah. So I'd like to speak on that.
We've got 8 minutes, which is gonna add a little bit of time. We've got a couple other things we've got to do.
You know, the other thing that we could do is close the public hearing now that the major subdivision preliminary plat has been voted on. So whenever you're ready, I'd like to talk about procedure for part two.
Let's close the public hearing and then you can do that.
Okay.
Okay, how's that sound? So, well, let's, Member Besnet made a motion, which I think is probably a proper way to do this. So, Member Besnet made a motion that we, kind of adjourn the review of this project, which we will in a moment. But not to continue standard review at this point. Does anyone have any discussion or any comment on that? Because what that means is we will end up taking the next 4 parts at the next meeting.
Chair,
Member Basnet?
I just want to be clear. We mentioned that we're going to close the public comment. Is that closing it for tonight? Or we're going to resume public comment on the next meeting, or public comment is done? I want to be clear.
Sure. The intent is to close the public hearing, the public comment, this evening, which would close it for the rest of the project. But the city solicitor always seems to have somewhat a different view on those things than me. So, Dave? No,
No
good for that.
different view.
Okay. So then the only other part of the answer I would have is that if we felt a need to have to get input, then we have to open up the public hearing in order to get input. Follow me? So, that would be the next thing at this point to do is, do we have a motion to close the public hearing portion of this project? Member Saucier.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Member Hume, thank you. So roll call vote on that. Member Basnet?
Yes.
Member Boucher?
Yes.
Member Brush?
Yes.
Member Hayes?
Yes.
Member Hume?
Yes.
Member Saucier?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, city solicitor.
Thank you, Chair. So the vote was made tonight to approve the preliminary plat with conditions. The process going forward would anticipate the planning officer notifying the applicant in writing, including any required modifications that are needed. The procedures for filing the final approval of a major subdivision, I want to just talk about the subdivider seeking approval of a final plat of a major subdivision must at least 20 days prior to the planning board meeting at which consideration is desired and within 12 months of preliminary plan approval by the planning board, file an application for major subdivision final plat approval with the staff coordinator. Such final plans should conform substantially to the plans which received preliminary plan approval by the planning board. The application must include the submission of prints consistent with the requirements of section 165-112 and at least 2 reproducible copies of the final lotting plan, meeting the recording requirements of the Penobscot County Registry of Deeds. The planning officer will then review the application for compliance with the provisions of this chapter and will within 10 days either place the application on the agenda for the next planning board meeting or notify the subdivider in writing of the deficiencies in the application and recommend modifications. The subdivider or applicant may then either amend the application in accordance with the recommendations of the planning officer or request planning board review thereon without amendment at the next regularly scheduled planning board meeting. The final plat of a major subdivision must be prepared or approved by a professional land surveyor or licensed professional engineer, shall contain a signature block, and shall bear the stamp of the such registered person. before the approval of the final subdivision plan by the planning board, a review of such plat shall be made by the engineering department for compliance with health, sanitation, and engineering standards. And in no case shall a final plan of a major subdivision be approved by the planning board without a written report from the city engineer. So as we envision this going forward, that review cannot occur before at least 20 days from today. It really longer, because the applicant has to submit an additional application. But at the next regular meeting, the planning board can review the other requirements for the other permit requirements, namely they would review the finding and make findings with regard to criteria for development in the LDR district, make votes on findings with regard to criteria for conditional use permit, and make votes on findings with regard to criteria for site development standards under Article 19, Sections 165, 35, and 36, and make votes on findings with regard to criteria for approval of a land development permit under 165-114. So that can occur at the next meeting, but the review of the final plat has to occur no earlier than probably the January meeting. Unless, yeah, I mean, because it has to be more than 20 days from tonight's approval. And it has to be, there's some time built in there, so. That's what we're looking at.
Thank you, City Solicitor Saucier. There was a saucier once upon a time.
A different saucier, right? Yeah, yeah.
Get an extra degree.
But his name was also Josh, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So we need to make a motion to continue this project. Continue this project to the next meeting, which I think is a combination of what Member Bazinet was suggesting earlier, that we stop the discussion this evening and continue this project review at the next meeting. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we continue this project at the next planning board meeting.
Thank you. In a second. Member Hume. All in favor? I'll go with a raise of hands on that. I think everyone probably is. Thank you. And so that would include, just what Dave mentioned a second ago, so the part 3, 4, 5, and 6 in your packets review. So if you want to peruse them a little bit just to see what we're up against next time, that would be worthwhile, I think. The only other thing we need to talk about this evening are meeting minutes from November 14th, 2023. Everyone that's here tonight was at that meeting, and
Don't we have the 22nd too? 21st?
and the 21st as well. Everyone was here for that as well, so we can take them as a pair. If no one has any issues with those. Do we have any comments, any questions with those, any issues? Hearing none, can I get a motion to,
You want to do them together? Because since we were all there,
what's that?
we're going to do them together.
Yeah, sure.
I do have a question. Where I was alternate at both of those, do I vote on them or not?
Still would.
Okay.
Yep. So November 14, November 21, meeting minute packets. Or meeting minutes, I'm sorry, I guess just meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for the meetings in the November 14th and 23rd.
Member Hume, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Bazinet was first up there. Raise of hands on that. All in favor, yes. There was an issue with packets being did that get on your account?
I was under the impression that we were good with moving forward with board members picking out the packets from the office. I don't know if that's changed.
I'm fine with picking mine up.
I think there was at least one that wasn't. Is
Okay.
there a reason why we couldn't find a different way to mail it? I guess maybe part of the.
I mean, We'll see if we can get some kind of expedited delivery. So
Somebody like FedEx or something like that.
Sometimes there's a delay in getting it printed and everything, so that's, and the mail, sometimes we've had incidents where the board member gets it from the date of the meeting.
Well, that's, that happens.
Right. So
They're not
that's where we thought a pickup on, Friday or Thursday afternoon might be preferable.
And I mean, I'm okay if some want to do it with a pickup and others want to do it with a mailer.
I was the one that raised that objection to you last time, and I'm okay as long as I can get it, if I can get it to come up electronically, if I don't have issues, then I'll revert to paper and I'll pick it up myself if I need to.
Okay.
So,
So you want to just go pick it up yourself? for
Yeah,
now and we'll
let's-
See how that works?
yeah.
Everyone good with that?
As long as I talked to Sarah and she said she could have it for me on Thursday afternoon.
All right. Sounds like it's all set for being
Okay,
picking up.
great.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, this meeting is adjourned.